miniature print, the banana night and the review of the Ender 3 Pro. As you can see, printing's underway. So before we get into cutting up the model and start printing, I just wanted to go through a couple of issues and changes I've found in my testing of the Ender 3 Pro. One very common in the community and one not so, and I'm quite surprised at the result and the fix. The first is a very common issue with the Ender. I'd read about it before I got the printer, but I don't like to do mods until I've got and used and tested the printer myself. That's with the bed springs. I've probably done 12 test prints now. They have all come out fine, not a problem, but one of the common issues I've had is after every print, or at least after every other print, I've had to re-level the bed, and sometimes it's been out almost a millimetre. The common fix online is to look at the bed springs. These are the springs that I'm talking about. They sit between the bed and the actual adjustment wheel, so that you can turn it left and right and raise the bed up and down, and the springs take up and hold the tension between the two. Now the standard springs are these. They, I guess, a normal spring, and the theory is that they don't hold enough tension and have got too much movement, and they're quite soft. I can squeeze them, but I wouldn't say they're awful, and they are very similar to the ones that I have on my i3s. The generic answer online was to swap them with these, what people call the yellow spring. They're made by a couple of manufacturers. Again, I'll link below. They are really hard, and out of these springs that this manufacturer makes, these are actually the lightest duty. I was a little concerned these are too hard and wouldn't have enough adjustment, or might put too much pressure on the bed and warp it, but I did swap them and they've made a difference. I've done probably half a dozen prints since I've swapped these springs, and sure enough I haven't had to re-level the bed since. As you can see, they're a very similar spring. The yellow one's probably slightly long. If you just have a look, the compression is markedly different. Anyway, they made all the difference, and for a couple of pounds I believe that's sorted that issue and we're good to go with the print. The second issue, and quite a strange one, was during a couple of my test prints I encountered a loud noise. As I've mentioned before a few times, I'll usually have these printers in my workshop, which, whilst part of it is in my house, it's quite a way room-wise from the room which I use as my main day-to-day working office. And at one point I could hear a really loud noise, a grinding and a scraping, and I thought, oh no, the print's come off the bed, the belt snapped, something's really gone wrong. And I expected to see a disaster print on the printer when I came down to check it. What I found is it was printing absolutely fine. The noise had gone, and just as I was about to leave and investigate what else it might be, I found actually it was the printer. It started making the noise again. And all my test prints so far had were very basic shapes. So the printer was absolutely fine when it was going left to right, backwards and forwards and in circles, and it only made the noise when it went diagonally from back left to front right. A really loud grounding noise. I'll just take off the micrometer. I've used that when I level the beds sometimes. It's an adapter online designed by somebody else, another guy in the UK. I'll put a link to his site and actually to the micrometer because it's disgustingly cheap on the Banggood website. I was using that for my investigations because of this strange noise. So the noise was only happening when it was printing in one diagonal axis, and that was from the back left here to the front right here. Very large grounding noise, and it was also only when it was doing infill. Now I thought maybe it's catching on the infill, maybe that's a leveling issue, something to do with the machine. I did a quick Google online, and unfortunately, because the Ender's known or seems to be known in the community as a noisy printer. If you put in noises, strange noises, it was flooded by things that were obviously nothing to do with my problem. I then found one video on YouTube, which I will link down below, to a gentleman who described the problem the same as mine and then put video footage on with it making exactly the same noise in exactly the same scenario, doing exactly the same travel. His answer though was just to take off this fan shroud with these two screws here and here, tighten up the head, put this back on, tighten the screws and tighten the fan. Now I found it hard to believe, that, if I'm honest, that was the answer for the symptom, because it was so strange. But sure enough, I did exactly what I did in the video. I just took it off and tightened all the screws on the print head and did a test print that forced it to do the same diagonal infill, and sure enough, problem was fixed instantly. So strange one, but it is out there. I then found lots of forum posts when I kept looking of people asking the same thing who didn't seem to get an answer. So there you go. If you've got a bizarre, horrible, grinding, rattling noise in one direction, it's probably loose screws on the print head. So before we can start printing the banana, we need to cut him up. And if you remember on the paperwork, I said what I don't want to do is just do a normal cut, in that I want the actual banana body to be yellow and the arm silver, etc. So if I'm just using Mesh Mixer here because I think a lot of people know this and it's free. If I plain cut him and cut him into parts, let's just cut him in half for an example. If I then try and print this part, as you can see, I've got multiple parts of him with what would be different colours in one part. So if this slice would fit on a bed and that was ideal, I'd end up with a bit of shield, a bit of banana skin, a bit of banana and a bit of sword, which I want in different colours. Obviously in reality I've got to cut him up even smaller than that if I want to get him massive on the ender. So if I quarter him, I'm still getting different parts. So what I want to do is actually scoop off his arms and the banana part in their own right. Now, as I've put this model together, I've got the parts individually, however, they're not posed. So I've got the arms and legs and the body separate. If I show you what I plan to do on this test piece here. So if you assume this cylinder here, this primitive is the banana's body, and this is the shoulder, one of the joints of his arm. If I just take them out as I can and say, right, let's take this arm off, you'll notice this is a ball, and a lot of my top of arms and shoulders are a ball joint, and when I'm putting them together I just clip them in like that and make them solid. Well, that's no good if I print it, because if I pull it out and then just print my individual parts, of course what you'll find is when I come to make this up in their solid plastic, it will stop there. I can't actually physically push it through. So what I'm going to do with the parts is get him in his standard pose as you've just seen, and use something in Mesh Mixer and other programs known as Boolean operations. So I'd select his body, select the arm, and excuse me, in Mesh Mixer it's Boolean difference, and as you can see that scooped that out, so then I can get that arm and then I can push that arm into that socket, and I'll have to do that as the body. Or the other way around, I'll do it, same operation, just selecting the parts in a different order, is I'll do it to the arm so that the arm then has the scooped out piece, so when I come to push it onto the cylinder it will actually fit. So I'll need to do that either way round as I feel fit with each of the parts to cut up the banana so it's in the right colours. that, when finished with the banana, ended up looking like this. I've sliced off the edible part. That's cut where that meets the top of the peel, so I can print that in cream. All arms, legs and metal off, so I can print them in silver. As you will notice, I decided to scoop these out. I thought if I did the ball joint that is actually on here, if you'd have seen it into the banana, it would have allowed movement, and if it was some sort of action figure or multi-pose piece, that would have been really good, but I don't want that. I want him to be set exactly as he is. So I cut these out so that when I put them on, they will naturally only fit in one place, and I'm going to use some form of adhesive and glue them together. So cutting this up, the arms and legs will need cutting up a little more. They've got nice natural joints, the joints in the plate and the gloves as part of the armour, so that should be straightforward. The peel, you can see here, I've cut up again and even more. So the thing with the banana peel is I want it all printed in yellow, and I could cut these pieces in half again, but I don't want a glue or a line through any real detail because I think it'll distract the eye. So the largest piece obviously denotes the size of the whole thing because everything is a multiple of that. So for me, the biggest part that I couldn't cut through was the peel leaves, as I call them. So I've cut them out into individual pieces, found the largest. I will obviously then print this as big as I can on the bed, and then I know all the other smaller pieces will fit. So I've got to cut this up, but there's no detail, so I should be able to hide the line. I just didn't want a plain cut line straight through these. So the first print and the first test part I'll do will be probably this piece here. So I've taken my largest part, which is the first piece of banana peel, which is going to be dictating the size of the whole thing because it is the largest piece. So whatever I scale it to, it's going to be the largest bit I can get on the print bed, and that happens to be 23 times the size of an ordinary 28mm miniature. As you can see, I've loaded it in Cura here. I use Cura other than the slicer that they give you with the ender. I'm more familiar with Cura, and Cura does have a full profile for the ender. I said I wasn't going to hollow the piece out, but in the end I did. It was going to save on plastic, ironically, and keep it sort of the same strength. So I'm not necessarily hollowing it just for saving on plastic or any other particular reason, but it also knocked off a few hours off the print. The print is estimated to take just under 3 days for this one largest piece. So here we are, it's sent to the printer, ready to start. It's going to prime and then print. I'll speed this up as the print progresses. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, so it is 3 days, and we should then be well on our way to our first piece. Here we are 17 hours later. Small heart attack because I thought I got a layer shift at the bottom at the front there, but that's just where the support ends and the actual model starts. The layer lines and the quality of the print look fantastic, so happy at this point, but not a massive amount of progress for 17 hours later. and back again nearly 2 days later, 1 day 21 hours to be exact, and it's nearly finished. I'll leave video 2 here and we'll see how it completes in video 3, see if we're happy with it. I'll put links below. Remember, the printer itself was supplied by Banggood for this test, and they have given me some discount codes, so I'll pop those in the links below for you guys. I will see you in a few days' time when I've printed a couple more pieces for part 3.